The world had been without war for 1,000 years. No one alive had ever heard the sound of gunfire outside of old movies. No one had ever seen a tank roll down a street or watched a city burn. Humanity lived in a quiet golden age under the global accord. Weapons had been destroyed, armies disbanded, and even the word war felt like something from a fairy tale. People lived in green cities with hanging gardens between glass towers. Children played in clean streets without fear. Peace was not just a dream anymore, it was life itself. That was why no one was prepared for what happened one calm morning. The day began like any other, with the usual hum of quiet activity. Farmers in the countryside were checking their crops, students in sky-high schools were preparing for lessons. And in the city's squares, artists painted while music drifted through the air. Then, without warning, every single screen, every wall display, every floating projector went black. For a few seconds, there was only silence. Then a strange, deep voice spoke in a language no one had heard before. At first it was just noise, but then the global accord's instant translators kicked in, and the words became clear. Your age of peace is over. Prepare for harvest. The image that followed was worse. A huge insect-like face filled the screens. Its eyes were like black pools of oil, and its mouth moved with slow, wet precision. Behind it, something glinted in the shadows like steel teeth. The transmission lasted only 15 seconds before the screens went dark again. Most people stood frozen for a moment, staring in confusion. And then something unexpected happened. People laughed. Not nervous giggles, but loud, honest laughter. Some thought it was a performance piece. Others assumed it was a prank by bored tech artists. Within minutes, social feeds were flooded with jokes. Memes of giant bugs holding coffee cups. Animated versions of the alien trying to dance. Someone even painted the alien's face on a birthday cake. People tagged their friends saying, "Look, we're about to be harvested." The Global Accord leaders did not laugh. In the high chamber above the Earth's capital, members of the council sat in heavy silence as an officer rushed in. He was pale and breathless. "Hey, this is no prank," he said, placing a small projector on the table. It showed live footage from an orbital station. A shadow moved across the lens, massive and sharp-edged. Then another. 3 black shapes the size of mountains slid into orbit, blocking the sun in certain regions below. They were not human ships. No human had built anything that size for centuries. Their surfaces shimmered with strange lights, and their edges bent space around them like heat on a summer road. On the ground, the first cities to lose sunlight fell into an eerie twilight. Street lamps flickered on, though it was still morning. Children pointed at the sky. Parents pulled them back inside. And yet, even as fear began to spread in small pockets, laughter still ruled the networks. People posted videos of themselves waving at the black shapes. Some even set up picnics in parks to welcome our new bug overlords. From the alien ships, there was no reply. But in their command chamber, deep inside the largest vessel, the insect-faced leader watched the human reaction with confusion. They do not scream. It clicked in its strange language. They do not hide. They mock us. A smaller alien beside it tilted its head. Perhaps they do not understand. The leader leaned closer to the viewing screens. Then we will make them understand. High above Earth, the black ships began to shift. Panels opened like unfolding wings, and something started to hum, a low vibration that made the air itself feel heavy. Down on the planet, in a small corner of the old city of Prague, a man known only as the Old General sat alone in his apartment. He had lived before the Global Accord, back when the world still knew the smell of smoke and the sound of sirens. His walls were lined with dusty books, maps, and photographs of people in uniforms. He looked up at the shadow passing over his window and smiled. Not with joy, but with recognition. So, he whispered to himself, "It begins again." The laughter of the world rolled on, but beneath it, something older than peace began to stir. It was not fear. It was something the aliens could not yet see. Something they would never understand until it was too late. For 1,000 years people had lived without the need to fight, but the stories of war had never been erased. Every school taught history with sharp detail, showing the rise and fall of empires. The battles fought in mud and snow, the cities, Rebuilt from ashes, children learned about the cold hunger of sieges, the sudden terror of air raids, and the strange calm soldiers carried into the fire. It was not to glorify violence, but to remind everyone that humanity had once faced darkness and survived it. Peace had made life softer, but memory had kept the human spirit hard. Hidden within that peaceful world were the Guardians. They were not an army, had no uniforms, no official rank, and no public presence. They lived among everyone else: farmers, engineers, teachers, even musicians, but in secret they trained. They learned old tactics, studied maps, practiced survival in forests and deserts, and built tools that looked harmless until the moment they were used. For centuries they had been told their duty might never come. Now it had arrived. Alien. Ships hung over the skies like silent mountains. Days passed with no further message, but small craft began to descend in remote areas. At first, they landed in empty fields or near small villages, scanning the ground with beams of pale light. In one farming town, the first landing was met, not with terror, but with curiosity. Locals walked toward the strange shapes, taking pictures, waving, and shouting greetings. The aliens stepped out tall, armored in dark plates, carrying weapons that hummed like bees. They ordered everyone to kneel. Instead, one farmer threw a bucket of cold water over the nearest alien. Cameras caught the moment. The alien's weapon fizzled. Laughter broke out. The video spread across the world within hours, and with them came the first sparks of real resistance. In the mountains of South America, an old woman used her goats to block a narrow pass, forcing alien scouts to abandon their search. In the deserts of Africa, teenagers flew homemade drones into the vents of alien transports, making them overheat and shut down. None of this was coordinated. It was simply humans doing what they had always done, turning whatever they had into a weapon. The alien commanders could not understand it. Their military strategy relied on fear. They'd crushed dozens of worlds by striking fast, breaking morale before the first real battle. But here, every small strike was met with defiance, sometimes with nothing more than laughter and a stone in the right place. Inside the largest ship, the insect-faced leader studied new footage. In one recording, an alien squad was chased away by farmers with pitchforks. In another, a child threw a paint balloon at an alien soldier and shouted, "Tag! You're it!" The leader's eyes darkened. "They are not like the others," it said. "They are dangerous." On Earth, the Guardians had begun to move quietly. Messages were sent in old codes no one had used for centuries. Supplies were hidden in places only they knew. In abandoned train tunnels beneath the cities, people gathered to hear a voice broadcast through a hidden speaker. It was deep, steady, and calm. "The time has come," the voice said. "The Guardians rise. Every mind is a weapon. Every hand is a blade. We will not kneel." In a quiet room in Prague, the old general heard those words and closed his eyes. He knew the world thought this was still a joke. He knew the laughter was a mask. But behind the mask, humanity was beginning to sharpen itself again. The aliens had come to harvest a weak, peaceful race. What they had found instead was a species that had been waiting 1,000 years for something worth fighting. And now, the fight was about to begin. The Guardians did not march like an army. They moved in shadows, blending into crowds, traveling on foot or by simple old vehicles that no alien scanner would waste attention on. To the untrained eye, they looked like ordinary people merchants. Cleaners, farmers, students, but each one carried knowledge and tools hidden in plain sight. A street vendor's umbrella was lined with a folding steel blade. A musician's case held not a guitar, but a disassembled rifle from centuries past. They did not rush to attack. They watched first. They learned the alien patrol patterns, the times their drones circled overhead, the frequency of their signal bursts. Then the first strike came. It happened in a coastal town where an alien landing zone had been set up beside an old shipyard. The aliens had placed their gravity weapons there, machines that could crush buildings with a single pulse. At night, under the cover of thick fog, a group of Guardians entered the zone. They wore no armor, just dark clothes and gloves, and carried nothing more advanced than tools stolen from maintenance depots. They moved like fishermen going to mend nets, their steps silent on the wet ground. When the alien guards saw them, it was already too late. Small, hacked repair robots, disguised to look like harmless service units, crawled into the gravity weapons and tore apart their power cores from the inside. By the time the aliens realized, half their equipment was gone and the other half was. Smoking in the rain, the Guardians melted back into the fog. The next morning, the townspeople were back in the streets, selling fish as if nothing had happened. But in the Alien War Council, the loss was clear. One commander slammed its clawed hand on the table. They have no warships, no armies, no fleets, and yet they strike like shadows. How? A captured alien officer from another zone was brought. In it, had been taken alive after its patrol was surrounded and disarmed without a single human firing a shot. When asked what had happened, the alien's voice trembled. They fight like chaos itself. They smile when they kill. They sing while. They burn our machines. I do not understand them. The insect-faced leader listened, silent and still. Then it ordered that more troops be sent down, more force used, more fear applied. But fear was a weapon that no longer worked here. In city after city, the humans did not hide. They sabotaged alien supply lines, cut communication cables, lured patrols into traps disguised as open streets. Farmers dug pits in their fields and covered them with straw. Engineers rewired alien energy cells so they overloaded when activated. Children acted as messengers, carrying coded notes inside toys and loaves of bread. Somewhere deep in the network of tunnels and hidden rooms, the old general watched the reports come in. Every victory was small, but together they formed a growing storm. He began to send his own orders, encrypted and scattered across the world. His voice on the hidden broadcast grew sharper. We do not match them in ships or guns. We do not need to. We fight with what they cannot take, our will. And when they come for us, they will find a trap they cannot escape. The aliens believed they were still in control, but the truth was already shifting. The war had begun, even if no one had yet called it by that name. Soon the old general would reveal the plan that would turn the strange human laughter into something the invaders would remember for the rest of their lives. The old general sat in a dimly lit chamber deep beneath the streets of Prague. The room smelled faintly of oil, paper, and dust, a place untouched by the clean glass and polished steel of the peaceful world above. Around him, maps covered the walls, maps of old battlefields, ancient city layouts, trade routes, and mountain passes. Every dot and line had meaning. In front of him, a dozen guardians stood waiting. Some were young, barely more than 20, their eyes sharp with determination. Others were older, faces lined with years of quiet preparation. The old general's voice was steady as he spoke. They believe we are weak because we have no weapons, like theirs. That is their mistake. We will fight them in ways they cannot predict. From a wooden crate, he pulled out a simple metal spearhead, old and slightly rusted. This, he said, holding it up, was made before their kind even. Reach the stars. It cannot be hacked. It cannot be jammed. It will kill just as well now as it did then. He spoke of Project Stone Age, a plan older than most of the Guardians themselves. The idea was simple. Avoid modern technology completely. Every tactic, every strike, every trap would be made from tools that existed before the first satellite ever launched. No signals to intercept, no heat signatures to track, nothing the aliens' advanced scanners would understand. Around the world, hidden workshops came alive. Blacksmiths forged blades from scrap metal. Hunters crafted bows and arrows with steel-tipped heads. Mechanics built catapults from salvaged beams and old cables. People dug trenches, built hidden pits, and coated the bottoms with sharpened stakes. The aliens mocked these preparations when they discovered a few of them. They called the humans primitive. But then the first wave of attacks under Project Stone Age began. In the forests of Eastern Europe, An alien convoy was ambushed by traps triggered with nothing more than rope and counterweights. In the deserts, alien walkers sank into deep pits disguised as sand dunes. In the mountains, rocks loosened by hidden hands tumbled down, crushing entire squads before they even saw their attackers. Without their technology advantage, the aliens fought slower and clumsier. They were used to battles measured in seconds, not long. Grinding fights where the enemy vanished after every strike, the insect-faced leader grew restless. A swarm without a hive, it said to its war council. We strike one, and another appears elsewhere. They have no central command. But that was the real trick, the old general, was the central command, and no alien knew his name or face. As winter approached, the aliens changed their strategy. Massive emitters were deployed from orbit, covering the planet in a thick layer of artificial clouds. Sunlight faded, temperatures dropped. Within weeks, the world was trapped in an early, unnatural winter. Crops began to fail. Power systems strained as people burned through energy to stay warm. For the first time since the invasion began, the laughter faded from the streets. In his underground chamber, the old general stared at the reports. People were cold. People were hungry. The aliens had found a way to hurt them without firing a single shot. The Guardians waited for his orders, but for a moment he said nothing. Then his eyes hardened. If they wish to fight in the dark, he said at last, we will make the dark our ally. And with that, he began preparing for a war without light. The world slipped into shadow. Thick artificial clouds smothered the sky, turning days into a dull gray and nights into pitch black. Snow began to fall in places that had not seen it for centuries. Rivers froze. Fields lay empty, their crops dead under the frost. In the cities, people burned whatever they could to keep warm: old furniture, broken tools, anything that would feed the fire. The laughter that had once filled the networks was quieter now, replaced by determination. Humanity had been cold before in its long history. It had starved before, and it had survived. The old general knew this was the aliens' plan to weaken the body so the spirit would break. But spirit was something the invaders could not measure on their scanners. Hidden beneath frozen streets and snow-covered hills, the Guardians worked harder than ever. They dug deep shelters, warmed by simple fire pits. They built hidden forges where blacksmiths hammered steel into arrowheads and spear tips. Hunters returned from the forests with deer and rabbits, their meat shared among entire communities. Every small act of survival was an act of defiance. The aliens increased their patrols, moving slowly through the frozen world in their black armor. But winter belonged to humans. They had fought in snow before. They'd marched across ice and slept in frozen mud. In the darkness, the Guardians struck more often, launching raids under the cover of blizzards. Small groups would appear from the white, strike fast, and vanish into the storm. Alien machines built for warm worlds froze solid in the bitter cold. Fuel lines cracked. Power cells died. In the city of Warsaw, a squad of aliens found themselves surrounded by nothing but empty streets, till every window above them opened, and flaming oil rained down. In the forests of Canada, an entire alien camp was buried under a sudden avalanche triggered by a single rope pull. The old general traveled in secret now, moving from one hidden base to another. His voice carried. Over short-range radios and whispered messages, they think the dark will break us. But we have always known the dark. We were born in caves. We hunted under moonlight. Let them come. Still, the cost was heavy. Families shivered together in cold rooms. Food grew scarce. Some wondered if the fight was worth it. The old general knew they were nearing the edge, but he also knew the endgame was close. From his scouts came word that the alien leader itself was coming down to Earth. It would arrive with the largest force yet. Certain that a single crushing blow would end the resistance. In a silent underground meeting, the old general stood before his commanders and spread out a map lit by a single lantern. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp. This is the moment we have waited for. Every trap we have built, every weapon we have forged, every ounce of strength we have, save that all leads here. We will not meet them in open battle. We will make the earth itself our weapon. When they come, they will not leave. The plan was simple. Lure the aliens into abandoned cities, surround them, collapse the walls, bury them under the very ground they stood on. Outside, the snow kept falling, covering the world in white silence. Soon, that silence would be broken, not by the cold, but by the final battle. And this time, humanity would not be laughing. This time, humanity would roar. The alien leader's ship cut through the heavy clouds like a blade, its black hull glistening with frost. Below, the abandoned city of Ironvale waited in silence. Snow covered the streets in a thick white layer. Windows were broken, doors left, hanging, buildings leaning in the cold wind. To the alien scouts, it looked empty, dead, and ready for the final sweep. The leader stepped out of its craft, towering over its soldiers. Its voice clicked in the cold air. End this. The alien force spread through the streets, moving with careful steps. They expected traps, but not what was waiting. From the rooftops, nothing moved. From the alleys, no sound came. It was only when the first squad reached the center square that the city came alive. Doors slammed shut. Hidden ropes pulled tight. Whole walls, weakened for weeks in secret, gave way at once. Stone and steel crashed down, burying squads under rubble. From the rooftops, guardians rose like shadows, releasing volleys of arrows tipped with burning oil. The flames spread quickly in the dry air, licking across alien armor and equipment. The leader roared orders, but the streets twisted and narrowed, every path leading into another kill zone. Bridges collapsed under their feet. Explosions shook the ground. In one alley, a guardian leaped from a balcony with nothing but a spear, striking down an alien officer before vanishing into the smoke. Above it all, hidden on a high rooftop, the old general watched. His voice came through dozens of tiny radios carried by fighters across the city. Hold your ground. Let them choke in their own fear. The aliens fought back hard, their weapons cutting through stone and fire alike, but for every human that fell, 2 more stepped into the fight. Civilians who had never held a weapon before threw bottles of oil from windows. Children banged on metal to confuse alien trackers. The city became a living trap, swallowing the invaders street by street. Hours passed, and the alien leader found itself cut off from its troops, its guards gone. In the smoke-filled square, the old general stepped forward, his breath white in the cold. "You thought we were prey," he said simply. "You thought we had forgotten. But we remember everything." The leader raised its weapon, but before it could fire, a weighted net of steel and chain dropped from above, pinning it to the ground. Guardians closed in, binding its limbs. Across the city, alien resistance crumbled. Some were captured, most lay buried under the ruins. By nightfall, the last black ship rose from the frozen skyline, fleeing into the clouds without its leader. The next day, a message was sent out not just to the alien fleet, but to every listening ear in the galaxy. The old general's voice was calm, steady, and unshaken. "We do not start wars, but we do not lose them." The laughter returned to the cities, but this time it was different. It was not the laughter of disbelief, it was the laughter of victory. Humanity returned to rebuilding, but the peace that followed was not like the one before. This time, the Guardians did not go back into hiding. Weapons were kept sharp. Shelters were kept stocked. And somewhere in the quiet, the old general kept watch, knowing that one day another shadow might come. If it did, the galaxy would already know the truth. Humans might laugh when war arrives, but they will fight until the last breath.